Well, it is the second day in a row that I've started like 5 minutes late. I am disappointed in myself. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed with myself. Yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff, but the major news that's happened today in the world of crime is that Rex Heuermann or Heuermann or however, I think it's Heuermann. I'm trying to make it fancy like Tog Heuer or something like that. No, Rex Heuermann, the accused, let's say prior to today, Long Island serial killer, now the confessed Long Island serial killer, he is confessed and at least to 8 murders, which is huge for the families of those 8 victims. Of course, there are other victims. There were other bodies found there on or near Gilgo Beach that we're going to talk about a little bit tonight. Whew, but it is a momentous day for those families. We're going to get into that case. We've got 3 interesting questions that you guys sent in that we're going to get into. By the way, if you've not sent in a question, and you want me to answer a question, well, it's your own fault, right? You got to send those in, 3questions at gavinfish.com. Send them to 3questions at gavinfish.com, and I'm happy to answer your questions, as we will for 3 viewers tonight. And then we've got more news to get into, including that Amy Hilliard is still missing. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. The so-called ketamine queen, who is the source of drugs in the Matthew Perry death. I missed some news on the Kimberly Sullivan situation from last month that I want to get to, and an update on the Athena Strand case. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight. I'm glad that you're joining me. Let's get into it. Push the right button. This video contains mature themes and discussions intended only for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Well, hello there, my friend, and welcome back to another true crime conversation with me, Gavin Fish. I'm so glad that you're joining me. I really am. I don't just say that every day. I feel it. I'm so glad that you're joining me. And wherever it is that you're joining me from, I think it's terrific. Please tell me in the comments where you are joining me from. I just absolutely love that. Hey, with this case, the Long Island serial killer case, I think it's very easy for us to fall into, I mean, I don't know if it's really the glorification of the serial killer. Glorification might be overstating it, but I guess what I'm getting at is I really want to remain victim-centric here, okay? I want to remain victim-centric, and I want to remain, as always, a student of humanity. We want to learn from this, right? And this is a doozy of a case, man. Let's start with maybe a recap of the case, okay? This is Rex Heuermann. The case of the Long Island serial killer, which has also been called the Gilgo Beach murders, spanned more than a decade, and it centers on a series of killings connected to a remote stretch of coastline along Ocean Parkway in Suffolk County, New York, on Long Island. So this case first came to light in May 2010, if I remember correctly, when a woman named Shannon Gilbert disappeared. Oh, dang it, Gavin did not get a picture of Shannon Gilbert ready. Please hold. Please hold, everybody. I have a picture of her because I had John Ray on. It seems like forever ago, but not all that long ago. Where's Shannon? There she is. Okay, it's not a terribly good picture of Shannon, but there is Shannon, okay? So the case began in 2010 when Shannon Gilbert disappeared after running from a home in Oak Beach during a late night escort call. She made a frantic 911 call saying that someone was after her before she vanished. And we've all probably heard that call. That call has come to light, and I think mostly through the work of John Ray. Do I have a picture of John Ray? Man, I just had a real hard time getting ready today. I just had a real hard time. Let's bring Rex back, and then let me see if I can find a picture of John Ray. John has been on the program a couple of times now. He is a fancy Dan. Really fancy guy. Let's see. Open. All right, here is a picture of John. John is a lawyer out there in New York. Okay. Now, okay, where were we? So police, after Shannon disappeared, police began searching for her in that area. In December of 2010, during the search, police didn't find Gilbert right away. Instead, they found a shocking discovery. They found human remains along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. And over the next several months, investigators uncovered multiple sets of remains. 4 of the victims were identified as young women who had worked as escorts and had advertised their services online. And these victims became known as the Gilgo Four. They are Maureen Brainerd Barnes, who was last seen in 2007, Melissa Bartholomew, who was last seen in 2009, Megan Waterman, last seen in 2010, and Amber Lynn Costello, also last seen in 2010. All 4 of these women had been contacted through Craigslist before they disappeared. Now, as that search expanded, in early 2011, investigators discovered additional remains nearby. In total, there were at least 10 sets of human remains that were found along Ocean Parkway, near Gilgo Beach and the surrounding areas. Some of them dated as far back as the mid-1990s. And not all of the victims fit the same profile. And that, of course, led to years of debate as to whether there was one killer or multiple killers. I think that debate still will continue because today, Rex Heuermann pleaded guilty to 8 murders, but there are at least 10 victims. Shannon Gilbert's remains, bringing back Shannon. Make sure that I'm on the right thing here. Bringing back Shannon. Shannon's remains were eventually found in December of 2011 in a marsh near where she disappeared. Her death was ruled accidental, though that conclusion has been heavily disputed, including by our friend John Ray. Okay, now for years, the case stalled. There were no arrests, no clear suspect publicly identified. There was growing criticism of how the case was handled, not only by people like John Ray, but other local authorities. It became a political football. And the families of the victims were pushing for answers. And it became, I mean, when we think of serial killers, guys, we think of like the 1970s, do we not? Or maybe into the 1980s. It just doesn't feel right to have a modern serial killer. It's so hard to get away with this in today's age, right? So yeah, this one has become one of the most infamous until now unsolved serial killer cases that the country has had. I mean, for years and years and years. The breakthrough, and actually what was really interesting to me about this case is that unlike, say, Ted Bundy, where his victims were known, right? Like at the time they were murdered, they were known. No, these victims just went missing and were missing in some cases for decades. Okay. All right. Decades may be overselling it. But anyway, in 2022, there was a breakthrough. In Suffolk County, New York, a new task force was formed to re-examine the evidence using updated technology. I'm sure they had fresh investigative eyes every time, there's a new group of people looking at a case. They come to it with different experiences, right? They focused heavily on phone records, on digital evidence, and vehicle data tied to communications with the victims. One detail stood out, and that was a dark green Chevrolet Avalanche that had been seen by a witness in connection with one of the victims. And I think I might have a picture of that. Yeah. So, like, this is a picture from when they actually served a search warrant on Mr. Heuermann. So there's the green Chevy Avalanche. It's very, very specific, right? Because he has that roof rack on the top. He also has like a bed rack that is connected to it. Very, very specific. Okay. All right. In July of 2023, police arrested Rex Heuermann. He is an architect in Manhattan. He lived in Massapequa Park on Long Island, and investigators linked him to the victims through multiple pieces of evidence, including burner phone activity tied to victim communications, location data placing him near key sites, internet searches related to the case and victims, DNA evidence recovered from items linked to the crimes. In fact, Suffolk County District Attorney Gavin, hold on, I'm having one of those moments. What's his name? His name is dude, I am so blanking on his name. Hold on. You guys are screaming at me right now, right? Ray Tierney. There it is. It came to me. So Suffolk County DA Ray Tierney, seen here, did a press conference, and we are going to watch some clips of it here in a minute. But first I want to kind of get into the victims a little bit. But anyway, Ray Tierney, he actually talks about how he talked to the victims' families and said, please be patient with us and please have faith in us because we want to lull this guy into a false sense of security, right? So when they arrested Heuermann, he was initially charged with the connection of a few of the Gilgo Four. So what the prosecutors alleged was that Heuermann was targeting women working as escorts, contacting them through online ads, arranging meetings with them, and then killing them, right? By the way, talk about one of the most dangerous occupations in this world. If you go to my website, gavinfish.com, you click on cases up here, I want to bring your attention to a case that I've been looking at for years now. It is the case of Shelby Thornburg. This is a case where I am in touch with the victim's family. I haven't talked to her in a while, her sister. But we've got a few case documents. Her sister actually was able to give me several photos of the crime scene, including like this one, because she had to clean up the crime scene. So she went and cleaned all of this up. Also, you can get to know Shelby, but Shelby was also working as an escort. For her, it was in Houston, Texas. And yeah, she was contacted through what was it called? Backpage? Is that what it was called? Yeah, backpage.com. It's since then been closed down. And full on just had her her throat cut. So dangerous, dangerous, dangerous occupation. Oh my goodness. Oh, I just want to protect them all. I recognize how hard life is. And I think that, like in the case of Shelby Thornburg, she was kind of lured into that business, and she was living a life that she felt fancy and loved, and no, she was just being used. But anyway, that's what Rex Heuermann was doing. He was contacting these women through Craigslist, and then meeting them, killing them. The victims were bound, and their bodies were then disposed of along Ocean Parkway. And by the way, and they remained in plain sight for years, right? So what makes this case so notorious? Well, it stands out because of the long time span. I'm going to get into the victims here in just a second, of the killings, starting in 1993, I think, all the way through what, Gavin? 1993 to 2010. So 17 years. Number of victims, obviously, the use of online platforms to target victims, the years-long failure to identify a suspect, the years-long failure to identify victims, and the fact that remains were left in such a concentrated area without being discovered for so long. All right, so let's go into the victims, okay? Victim number one, that Rex Heuermann has pleaded guilty to their murder, is Sandra Costilla. She was killed in 1993. She was a native of Trinidad and Tobago, had been living in New York. Her remains were found in the town of Northsea on New York's Long Island. Initially, authorities suspected a different killer, but the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office said advanced DNA linked Heuermann to a hair lifted from Costilla's shirt. Victim number two, and I'm going in order of, chronological order, was Karen Vergata. So on Wednesday, today, Heuermann admitted to the murder of 34-year-old Karen Vergata. This is the only photo I could find of her. He was not formally charged with Vergata's death, but admitted to it as part of the plea agreement. Vergata went missing in February of 1996, and authorities believe she worked as an escort at the time. Some of her remains were found in April 1996 on Long Island's Fire Island, and additional remains were recovered in April 2011 along Long Island's Gilgo Beach. She is survived by two sons, and the DA talks to her sons briefly in the presser. Victim number three that Mr. Heuermann has admitted to is Valerie Mack. Valerie Mack was killed in 2000. A hunter's dog discovered her decapitated body in a wooded area of Manorville on Long Island on November 19th, 2000. Fun fact, that would be the first anniversary of the marriage of one John Gavin Fish and his beloved Snuggly Bear Sweetie Pie one and only Kimberly Fish. Ooh. It's funny when those kinds of coincidences happen, right? We had a much happier day. Unfortunately, for Valerie Mack, her life ended before November 19th. Let's see. Her remains were bound with rope inside a plastic bag. It was a black bag, which was wrapped with duct tape. Both of her hands had been severed from her body, and one of her legs was cut off, according to court records. The rest of Mack's remains were found more than a decade later in April 2011 along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach, so he scattered her remains. Prosecutors said they linked Heuermann to Mack's death in part through a mitochondrial DNA analysis of a female hair found on Mack's body. It matched the profiles of Heuermann's wife and daughter. according to court records. Prosecutors said they also linked Heuermann to Mac's death through evidence recovered on some of the electronic devices they seized from him that include his significant collection of violent bondage and torture porn dating back to at least 1994. The online collection included images of mutilation, tying up women with ropes, two things prosecutors said are consistent with injuries inflicted on Mac and how she was bound. Victim number 4 was 20-year-old Jessica Taylor. She went missing in July of 2003. Taylor was decapitated. Her arms were severed from her torso, possibly in an attempt to hide her identity. Some of her remains were found in July of 2003 in Manorville on Long Island. Some were recovered in March 2011 near Gilgo Beach. Taylor's mother, Elizabeth Bacchiol, I don't know how to pronounce her name. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. She told reporters today that she is grateful for the guilty plea. Quote, "I'm glad this is over. It took a big chunk of stress off me and my family," she said. So yeah, 23 years later, almost 23 years later. Okay, victim number 5 is Maureen Brainerd Barnes. Maureen was 25 when she vanished in 2007. Quote, "She had bright blue eyes. She was very outgoing, very outspoken." Her friend Sarah Carnes told ABC News' 2020. "Every time I talk about it, it doesn't get any easier," close quote. Brainerd Barnes' remains were found at Gilgo Beach in December 2010. Investigators found DNA belonging to Heuermann's then-wife and hair recovered from a belt used to restrain Brainerd Barnes, according to the indictment. Heuermann's family was out of state when Brainerd Barnes was killed, prosecutors said, and his wife was not suspected to be involved in her death. Her daughter, Nicolette, who was 7 years old when her mother was killed, told reporters when Heuermann was charged, "While the loss of my mom has been extremely painful for me, the indictment by the grand jury has brought hope for justice for my mom and my family." Nicolette and her brother said today that they accept the plea deal. Maureen's sister, Missy Kahn, added that Maureen was never forgotten and the guilty plea brings solace. To her sister, she said, "I would never stop searching for justice for you. Justice has finally found its way to you." Whew, that's tough. Tough. All right. Victim number 6 is Melissa Barthelemy. She was 24. She went missing in July 2009. Her sister, Amanda Funderburg, had received several taunting phone calls in 2009 that were believed to be from the sister's killer. Her remains were found in Gilgo Beach in December of 2010, police said. Victim number 7 is Megan Waterman. She was 22. She went missing in June of 2010. Her remains were found in December of that same year on Gilgo Beach. Her daughter, Liliana Waterman, told reporters today that she accepts the guilty plea and is very, very thankful. And finally, victim number 8, again in chronological order of when they disappeared or were murdered, was 27-year-old Amberlynn Costello, who went missing in September of 2010. Her remains were found in Gilgo Beach in December 2010. Now, there are other victims that were found in the area, let's say. Okay. Shannon Gilbert, who we've talked about. There's an unidentified woman known as Peaches, whose remains were found in 1997. There is a baby doe who is a toddler believed to be Peaches' child, whose remains were found in 2011. There's Asian doe, unidentified biological male, found 2011, believed to have presented as female. And then there's Fire Island Jane Doe, who remains unidentified. Her remains were found in 1996, and partial remains later were linked to the Ocean Parkway discoveries. So there are 5 victims, including Shannon Gilbert, that we don't know if they're linked to Mr. Heuermann. Okay, that was a long intro. That was nearly a half an hour. I'd really like to go to see what you guys are saying over here. And the way my system works, it might have refreshed, so I might not get all of your comments. But let me just, Robin says, because I arrived late, it's my party and I can start when I want to. I was crying. By the way. My mascara had run because I was late. It was my party. And I'll cry and I'll be late if I want to. Thanks, Robin. Appreciate that. Let's see, where else? I just want to see if people are checking in. Nikki, happy hump day from the shipwreck capital of the Atlantic, Bermuda. Nikki, it's always good to see you. Thank you for checking in. Emmy coming to us from San Jose, California. Paul from the UK. We got Staten Island here. Got Long Island, New York in the house. Detroit, South Australia, Mount Gambier, South Australia. Glad you're here. Connecticut, the beautiful state of Oregon, Broomfield, Colorado. Thanks for being here. Southern Virginia, town called Emporia is here. Glad you are here. Let me keep on going here. Yeah, put GF before your comment if you want me to see something here. From Robin. Robin asked, Gavin, do you think that Rex copped to what he did but denied Peaches and her baby, and that's how they determined they weren't his victims? I think there's just still a giant question mark here. And I do think that there is a certain amount of power and maybe even a little bit of don't mean to be coarse here, but like orgasmic pride that killers hold on to by keeping things a mystery and keeping that power. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I know that, well, I understand from part of his plea deal that talking to the FBI is about why he did what he did is part of the deal. Yeah. Yeah, sounds like folks don't want to look at this dude's face and would rather see victims or prosecutors. I can take his face off. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. In fact, I was watching Duty Ron earlier. I love Ron. I watch his show all the time. I want you to remember something, though. Okay, something about this is that a monster like Heuermann did not want to be discovered. You know, there are criminals that want their face and their name plastered everywhere, especially people like school shooters and stuff like that. I hate that. I don't want to plaster their name anywhere. But when it comes to a person who did not, he wanted to remain anonymous. He wanted to go under the radar and keep his deeds from discovery. I am all about putting it out there, not to glorify him, not to celebrate him, but to kind of give him the digital bird, man. Is you, Mr. Dumas, are a dill hole, and we all know you are. You're a murderous scumbag, and you are going to be in prison for the rest of your life. And I hope, well, I don't hope that. I don't like prison justice, but I hope it's an uncomfortable life indeed for the rest of your life. Oh my goodness. So that's why I put up his photo when we're talking about him. But I take your point, and I do try to be victim-centric, so we will keep victims up here. We'll start with Sandra. Let's see. Let me just keep on going through your comments here. I think I saw somebody was... Lee says, thank you for talking about each of the victims individually. Yeah, happy to do that. Let's see, Dom's mom, 18-month fanatic. Thank you very much for being here. She says, greetings from Seattle. Glad at least these 8 families get some semblance of justice. Thank you for focusing on these beautiful victims and families. I'm happy to do it. And thank you for being a member. Lee, I got it. I got what you're saying. But I will probably put it back up on the screen. Let's see. Cassie says Peaches, aka Tanya Jackson, and her daughter Tatiana Dykes, her ex Andrew Dykes, was charged with their murder. Oh man, thank you for letting me know that. Let me look that up here real quick. Oh yeah, okay. So this was December 18th, 2025. Ooh, thank you for bringing this up. Andrew Dykes. Let's see. Nassau County District Attorney Ann T. Donnelly announced that a Florida man, an Army veteran, was arraigned on an indictment charge of murder in the second degree for the 1997 killing of Tanya Denise Jackson, previously known as Peaches, whose remains were found in Hempstead Lake Park and along Ocean Parkway near the remains of her 2-year-old daughter, Tatiana Marie Dykes. Thank you so much for letting me know that one. I'm sorry that was December 18th of last year. That's terrific news. Okay, so Peaches, Tanya, and Tatiana are not tied to Mr. Heuermann, it appears. The Robbie Lobby says this whole case enrages me like no other. Yeah, let's bring up Karen here. Milkman's first wife, watching from Alaska. Glad you are. Archangel Marici, is Gilgo Beach a solitary place? I'm not from the U.S., so I'm surprised that was happening there, and he never changed place as far as we know. Well, he scattered them a bit, but that's actually a very good idea to do. Just a little bit of map time. Let me go. From what I understand, we're going to start here, okay? This is Gilgo Beach, and this is Ocean Parkway going along Long Island, okay? Long Island is called Long Island. Why? Because it is a long island, okay? Gilgo Beach runs, you can see Ocean Parkway runs basically the length of Long Island, pretty much, at least for this area, right? And then the houses and everything are in the developments are over here. So when you look at it like this, it looks like, oh, that is kind of a solitary place. But when you look at it from the satellite, no, it is not. There's an inn across the street. There are houses everywhere. There's a lot going on in this area. Now, there are kind of marshy areas along Gilgo Beach because of how the tide works, right? And I believe that most of these bodies, they weren't found down on the beach. They were found up here in the marshy areas. That's how I understand it. Great question. We'll bring up Valerie. I put on my button Valeria. That's kind of a tangent we don't need to get into. Her name is Valerie. Okay. G Smile Sarah says, Gavin, your show's the best. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the good news segment. I hope it becomes part of the show permanently. Just sent a question too. Thank you for your well-rounded show. Dang it. I don't think I prepared good news. I was running late today. I need to repent. I'm glad for the feedback. Thank you very much. We do need to get good news as part of the show. I think, yeah, I didn't. Dang it, Gavin. We will repent, see the light, and make a switch. Get that good news back. Okay. With that out of the way, let me just read this one article by the AP. I found that it was the fairest. Before we get into some clips of the press conference, I just felt like this was written very, very well. So I thought I would share it with you. Written by Michael R. Sisak. Michael, thank you very much for your terrific reportage. Headline, Rex Heuermann pleads guilty in Gilgo Beach killings. Dateline, Riverhead, New York. A Long Island architect who led a secret life as a serial killer pleaded guilty on Wednesday to murdering 7 women and admitted he killed an 8th in a string of long unsolved crimes known as the Gilgo Beach killings. Rex Heuermann, 62, entered the pleas in a courtroom packed with reporters, police, and victims' relatives, some of whom wept as he detailed his murders. He will be sentenced in June to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Heuermann's guilty pleas to 3 counts of first-degree murder and 4 of intentional murder bring finality to a case that bedeviled investigators, tormented victims' relatives, and tantalized a true crime-obsessed public for years. Although he wasn't charged in her death, he also admitted that he killed Karen Vergata in 1996. There's Karen again. Quote, "This has been a long journey of hope. Hope that one day we would stand here and say her name with justice behind it. Melissa Cann, the sister of Maureen Brainard Barnes, said at a news conference hours after the meeting as she fought back tears. Quote, today that long, painful journey brings us to this moment, close quote. In court, Heuermann admitted that he strangled all 8 victims and dismembered some of them before dumping their bodies. Wearing a black suit coat, white button-down shirt, Heuermann appeared matter-of-fact and unemotional as he answered questions from the Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney and the judge. He never looked back at the packed courtroom gallery. Listen, guys, I'm going to go on a tangent here, okay? I'm going to go on a tangent. Let's do this.
A tangent! A tangent!
Sometimes we just need a tangent, okay? Now, I'm going to preface this by saying we take crime seriously. We take victims seriously, their families seriously. We don't take ourselves seriously. I learned something new this week, and I learned it from our son, who taught me that a shirt with buttons, like an Oxford shirt, a shirt that buttons, that we all button from top to bottom, as in we button them down, those are called button-up shirts. And button-down shirts are the kind where the collars have buttons on them to button down the collars. So our intrepid reporter here who did such great writing, Mr. Sisak, he was incorrect in his reporting that Mr. Heuermann was wearing a button-down shirt. Actually, let's go back. No, he is not incorrect. Gavin, he is not. Do you know why? Because look, he is wearing a button-down shirt. He's got his button-down collar. Okay, wow. So the things that you learn, this is a button-down shirt. I'm about to say, like, my shirt is a button-up shirt, but it's not because it has a little zippery zip. Anywho, okay, so he wasn't a button-down shirt. That was stupid to even talk about, especially when we're talking about such grim and important stuff. Okay, wearing a black suit coat and a white button-down shirt, Heuermann appeared matter-of-fact and unemotional as he answered questions from Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney and the judge. He never looked back at the packed courtroom gallery. The women, many of them sex workers, were killed over a 17-year span. The prosecutor credits the victims' families and investigators, and we're going to watch some of these clips. Quote, this defendant walked among us play acting as a normal suburban dad when in reality, all along, he was obsessively targeting innocent women for death, Tierney said at the post-hearing news conference. He thanked the victims' relatives, including some standing alongside him, for helping bring their loved ones' stories to life. And he praised members of the Gilgo Beach Homicide Investigation Task Force, which cracked the case with the help of clues that included DNA lifted from a discarded pizza crust. Gloria Allred, an attorney for some of the victims' families, described several of the women as young mothers who were just trying to earn extra money to support their children. Guys, am I just a little too, what's the word? I just don't like Gloria Allred. Isn't that terrible of me? She's just so self-aggrandizing, and I don't believe for a second that she cares about the families. Is that just me? Do I need to repent, see the light, and make the switch about that? She just is always everywhere where cameras are. She is the Martin Short of lawyers. Anyway, okay. Quote, little did they know that the defendant, Rex Heuermann, did not care about their hopes and dreams or that they had families and friends who loved them, Allred said at the news conference. Elizabeth Bagsiel, whose daughter Jessica Taylor, there's Jessica, was murdered by Heuermann, said, quote, I am glad that this is over as far as him pleading guilty. It took a big chunk of stress off of me and my family, close quote. Killer's ex-wife calls it a difficult time. Heuermann's ex-wife, is it Asa Ellerup or Asa Ellerup? I think it's Asa. I don't know. And their daughter attended the hearing and were mobbed by reporters as they entered and left the courthouse. Ellerup said her thoughts and prayers were with the victim's family, and she asked for privacy for her own family during what she called a very difficult time. Ellerup and her daughter Victoria had no knowledge of or involvement in the killing, said their lawyer, Robert Macedonio. Heuermann's attorney, Michael Brown, said it was Heuermann's decision to plead guilty, in part because he wanted to spare victims' families and his family the ordeal of a trial. Asked by a reporter whether Heuermann was sorry, Brown responded, I would hope so. I would expect at sentencing he would have something to say. As part of his guilty plea, Heuermann agreed to cooperate fully with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit as part of an academic and scientific exercise. Yeah, I'm going to skip the shocking find thing. We've talked about the gruesome details of the victims. A fresh look yields results. In 2022, 6 weeks after a new police commissioner formed the task force, what? I always have a hard time saying task force. Detectives identified Heuermann as a suspect by using a vehicle registration database to connect him to a pickup truck that a witness reported seeing when one of the victims disappeared in 2010. Heuermann lived for decades in Massapequa Park, about a 25-minute drive from where the women's remains were found. Some of the victims were believed, and let me real quick. Let's get directions to Massapequa Park to Gilgo Beach, just so that we can kind of see it here. Little mappy poo time, right? So again, this is where we are in the world for those of you who are outside of the states and are not like geography buffs of the United States, specifically New York State, right? But New York is in the northeast of the United States. I live here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. For me, I have to cross all of Pennsylvania, all of New Jersey, and into New York to get there. So it's quite a drive. But then we get down onto Long Island, and Massapequa Park is. Look at that. Long Island. So it's about a 25-minute drive down to Gilgo Beach. All right, let's go back here. Heuermann lived for decades in Massapequa Park, 25-minute drive from where the women's remains were found. Some of the women, or the victims, were believed to have disappeared from that community, and their cell phones were found to have pinged towers in the area, authorities said. After the truck discovery, a grand jury authorized more than 300 subpoenas and search warrants, allowing the task force to dig into Heuermann's life. Detectives collected billing records for burner phones he used to arrange meetings with the victims, retested DNA found with the bodies, and scoured Heuermann's internet search history which showed that he had viewed violent torture pornography and exhibited an intense interest in the Gilgo Beach killings and the renewed investigation. Cell phone data showed Heuermann was in contact with some victims just before they disappeared, investigators said. To obtain Heuermann's DNA, a task force surveillance team tailed him in Manhattan, where he worked, and watched as he threw the remnants of his lunch, a box of partially eaten pizza crusts, into a sidewalk garbage can. You know, if Mr. Heuermann would just eat his pizza bones, I'm glad he didn't. Always eat the pizza bones, everybody. The crust is the best part of the pizza. Don't leave partially eaten pizza crusts. This man is a monster on many levels. That's all I'm saying. Okay, investigators rushed in, grabbed the box, and sent it to the crime lab, which matched DNA from the crust to a male hair found on burlap used to restrain one of the victims. He was arrested in July of 2023. On his computer, investigators said they found what they described as a blueprint for the killings, including a series of checklists with reminders to limit noise, clean the bodies, and destroy evidence. And this is reminding me, we have thought, we have a bail application document that has there's so much information here. What is it? It's got to be, I don't know, 20 pages, something like that, that we could look at again if you guys want to. But this article did a very good job of getting us kind of the background. Okay. So that is where we are today. Now, we have a couple of clips that I want to bring to you. I think the first one is about 4 minutes long. This is the intro. This is courtesy of Fox 5 New York. This is Ray Tierney, the DA there in Suffolk County. I have brought the volume to 6 dB down, but because if you're wearing headphones, please do a little headphone check. We're going to watch this clip. Then I'll go to your comments. Then I've got a couple other shorter clips. Here we go with Mr. Tierney.
Okay, good afternoon. Thanks everyone for coming. This defendant walked among us, play acting as a normal suburban dad, when in reality, all along, he was obsessively targeting innocent women for death. He identified these women, lured them into Nassau County, murdered them, and left their bodies in Suffolk County. He thought that by killing them, he could silence them forever and get away with murder. But he was wrong, because it was these victims, these women, who refused to stay silent. First, that silence was broken by the victims' families, who advocated for their loved ones and agitated for justice. Then the noise grew louder through the ensuing investigation and examination of the evidence that the defendant left at or around the crime scenes, as well as on the bodies of the women themselves, that further told the stories of these victims and what had actually happened to them. It was this evidence that ultimately was put together by the task force that proved to be the defendant's undoing and led to the pleas of guilt in today's court proceeding. And it is in this way that these murders were solved. And while we in law enforcement, as well as our Suffolk County citizens, mourn the loss of these victims, we are also grateful to them and to their families, because without them, this defendant would have never been brought to justice and would still be walking amongst us.
I'm glad he's given the families credit.
He would still be portraying himself as that same harmless father next door, instead of what he is, a convicted murderer. Ultimately, this case is really about these victims and their stories. It is not about this defendant. And I speak for everyone in law enforcement, and when I say we are honored and thankful for being able to have played a small role in obtaining a small measure of justice for these families. For decades, this case stood out as a painful scar on the face of Suffolk County law enforcement, Suffolk County government, the citizens of Suffolk County, and the victims' families as well. However, with the defendant's pleas of guilt today, it means that for the first time since the deaths of these women, we can turn to all of these same people and say, Rex Heuermann will be held responsible for the 1993 murder of Sandra Castilla, the 1996 murder of Karen Vergata, the 2000 murder of Valerie Mack, the 2003 murder of Jessica Taylor, the 2007 murder of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, the 2009 murder of Melissa Barthelemy, the June 2009 murder of Megan Waterman, and the September 2010 murder of Ms. Costello. Despite this tragedy, there's a lot of different emotions, and I guess the word for today, despite the tragedy, despite all those emotions, is thankfulness. We are thankful. We have a lot to be thankful for, despite these emotions. First and foremost, we are thankful for the victims and the victims' families who told their stories, their loved ones' stories, and defended their loved ones' legacies. Without them, we would have never truly gotten to know those victims.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Tierney for giving credit to the families for continuing to push for change on the investigation of the murder of their loved ones. I thought that was a great way to begin the press conference. He continues a few minutes later. This one's actually a little bit longer. This one's about 7 minutes long. Mr. Tierney.
We told them, or I told them, that we were going to do things differently.
Talking about the families.
It was going to be a new manner of doing things. We were first and foremost, we were going to form a task force, and we were going to bring all of the talents of all these people standing here to bear, and we were going to work together. We were going to not use this case as a political football to be kicked into the news stream on slow days or whenever it suited the political leader's purpose. We were going to be quiet. We were going to pretend as though it was business as usual in Suffolk County. And the reason why we were going to do that was because we knew what we were doing. We were playing to an audience of one. And that one person, of course, was the murderer. We wanted to lure that individual into a false sense of security. We wanted him to think he got away with this. And that was exactly what we did. And the reason why we wanted to do that is because when we solved this case and we had those arrest warrants and executed those search warrants, we wanted more evidence, and that's exactly what we got. So we were thankful for that. We were thankful we were able to bring this case to a close, but it started, our inspiration was these victims and their families. But those families were so much more to us. Through them, we truly got to know these victims. When we started, the victims were nothing but names on a blotter, black and white, writing on investigative reports. But once we spoke to the victims, they provided us with the color of these women, and we got to know them as the wonderful mothers, sisters, friends, and daughters that they were. And that inspired us even more to close this case, to come to a resolution. So again, first and foremost, we are thankful for those families. And I just want to individually mention all of the families. The Brainerd Barnes family, I already spoke with Melissa, but I want to thank Melissa and her husband Chris and their children, Marie, who is Maureen's mom, Nicolette and Dylan, who are Maureen's two children. We want to thank them for their support, not only of Maureen, but for our investigation as well. And we want to say, on behalf of Suffolk County, we're sorry. The Bartholomew family, Amanda, who's
I don't know why, but I really appreciate him saying we're sorry. He's not sorry that they did anything wrong. That like they're sorry that he's sorry that that their loved one was murdered.
Melissa's sister, Lynn, her mom, and Jeff, Lynn's partner. We want to thank them as well. You know, when this case started, it started with the grand. Well, it didn't start, but the charging started with the grand jury, and Amanda, Lynn, and Melissa came down and helped us with the grand jury. And I remember when Lynn came in, you know, it was about a 2-day proceeding, and when Lynn first walked in, she appeared a certain way, and by the end of that second day, she looked completely different. You could see that having forced her to relive this, you could see the sadness in her face and in her eyes, and we're sorry for that. But without their cooperation, we wouldn't be here today. So to Amanda, Lynn, Jeff, and everyone in the Bartholomew family, we want to say thank you, and we want to say we're sorry. To the Waterman family, we have Megan's aunt, Liz, and we have her daughter, Lily. We want to thank them. We didn't get to know them until after the indictment, but again, the way that they stood by Megan and the way they supported us, we want to say to them, thank you, and we're sorry. To Amber Costello and her family, specifically Amber's sister Kim, we want to say thank you, and again, thank you for the support, and again, we're sorry for the loss of Amber. Valerie Mack, you know, we met shortly before the indictment. We met Ed and Joanne Mack. Ed and Joanne Mack were foster parents and then the adopted parents of Valerie, and they gave Valerie the only happy home she ever knew, and really the only support she probably ever knew in her life. And you know, meeting with them, they're incredibly special people. They're heroes. We also got to know Valerie's sister Angela and her son Aaron. Again, equally wonderful people. So to them, we want to say thank you, and we're sorry. Jessica Taylor, we got to know Jessica's mom, Liz, after the indictment. Prior to the indictment, we got to know Jessica's cousin, Jasmine. And right after the initial indictment of the first 3 victims, Jasmine came to us on behalf of Liz and said, please help us. Please find out what happened to Jessica. And at that time, you know, we didn't have enough. And we said, look, we're going to work and we're going to try to get there. And we're going to work as hard as we can. Please trust us. And, you know, Jasmine, on behalf of Liz, said they would do just that. So to Jasmine and Liz, I want to say thank you. And again, we're sorry. To the Vergata family, Karen Vergata, we recently went, I did, I mean, I know members of the Suffolk County PD had already spoken to the family, but my team recently went and we saw Eric and Gary, who were Karen's sons. Gary's not here today, but we got to meet Gary, and I know Gary's watching, so we want to say hello to Gary. Eric's here. We want to thank Eric. And again, we want to you know, thank you and tell them how much we admire them for supporting their mom and for supporting us. And again, we want to say we're sorry. On behalf of all of Suffolk County, we're sorry for Karen's passing. The Castilla family, Cassandra Castilla, we had the opportunity shortly before the indictment to meet with Ariel, who's the husband of Ruth, and Ruth is Sandra's sister. Again, wonderful people who really stood by and supported Sandra. So we want to thank them for that. We want to thank them for their support of our investigation. And on behalf of Suffolk County, we want to tell them we're sorry. We're sorry. So that's the family. Again, they inspired us. They're the reason why we do what we do. And you know, today was a very special day for us in law enforcement. Because it gave us the opportunity to turn to these victims and their families and say, listen, you know, we told you we were going to work really hard. We told you we were going to do everything we can to bring closure to you. And that's why we work in law enforcement. And, you know, we were able to do that to a small measure today. So we're happy for that. And again, so thankful for them.
Okay, that's the end of that clip. I appreciate that whole thing, talking about each individual victim and their families, telling them thank you for working with us, and telling them we're sorry for the loss of your loved one. Okay, the last clip is only a couple minutes long. He talks a little bit about the other victims. Here we go.
So, I'm going to turn it over to our partners, but just to clarify regarding the plea of guilt, the defendant has pled guilty to 3 counts of murder in the first degree pertaining to the murders of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. And all of those 3 individuals were killed within 18 months between July of 2009 and September of 2010. That enabled us, the proximity of those murders enabled us to charge those 3 murder 1 counts. In addition to the sentences of that is life without the possibility of parole. With regard to the other 4 victims, they pled guilty to 4 counts of murder in the second degree. That's Sandra Castilla, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Valerie Mack, and Jessica Taylor. Those sentences, 25 to life to run consecutive to each other and to the murder 1 charges. This defendant has additionally agreed to accept responsibility for the murder of Karen Vergata. And again, the sentence will be 25 years to life without the possibility of parole on the first 3 and 25 to life on the last 4, all of which is going to run consecutive. So
Stacks up.
we have 3 life without parole sentences and 4 25 to life sentences, all to run consecutive. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to our law enforcement partners. So I'm just going to leave with this. This case closes and another one opens. There are still, bodies on that beach. There are still bodies in Suffolk County. There's no rest for the weary. We are going to continue to work with our partners and to try to obtain closure for as many families as we can. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Catalina.
That's the end of that one. So they're going to continue to work to try to bring justice for all of the victims that were found in Gilgo Beach. Question from CSI Piper: will the evidence be released to the public, or will people have to FOIA them? I would imagine that there would probably have to be requested in order to get them. I think there will probably be some time. In New York State, it's called FOIL. You have to FOIL them. It's called the Freedom of Information Law. I am very familiar with that law through my work. And the Amanda Winkowski case with John Ray, actually. So, yeah, we will have to FOIL that probably. They may, I don't know. I'll have to reach out to John to see what he says, see what is already available. I'm sure that he's gotten a lot as he's represented Shannon Gilbert's family. And let's just recap here real quick, unless there are other questions. Let's just recap real quick. Our victims are from 1993. This is Karen Vergata. No. Sandra Costilla from 1993. From 1996, February 1996, Karen Vergata. From 2000, Valerie Mack. From later, 2003, July 2003 was Jessica Taylor. From 2007 was Maureen Brainerd Barnes. And from 2009, Melissa Barthelemy. Megan Waterman went missing in June of 2010. And Amber Lynn Costello, September of 2010. Makes me wonder, you might ask yourself, as I am, why did he stop in 2010? I don't think he did. Maybe his MO changed. I think there are probably more out there. But it is good news. It's good news that we've got a conviction now. He will never, ever, ever see the light of day outside prison walls, and that is terrific. Of course, these 8 women and some others from the beach have lost their lives, right? And we need to remember them. So glad that we've spent a little time on that. Now, let's transition a little bit and answer some questions, shall we?
It's 3 questions with Gavin Fish.
Okie dokie. In this segment, guys, I answer your questions that you email in to 3questions@gavinfish.com. I just bumped. Did you guys hear that? My watch. Anyway, I answer questions that you send to me at 3questions@gavinfish.com. It's spelled out THREE. Questions@gavinfish.com. I solemnly promise that I will answer your questions to the best of my knowledge. I specifically like the questions where everybody can answer in the live chat. I like reading your question or your answers as well. So I've chosen 3 to answer today. I need more. I need more questions, guys. Send them to 3questions@gavinfish.com. Question number 1 came from Diane G. Besides Javier and Wanda, who I love, what techniques and tools do you use to keep yourself organized? Okay, when it comes to my personal organization, I am unorganized. I'm an unorganized person. My office is always messy until I clean it, and then a few days later, it is messy. That's just the way it is. When it comes to my schedule, I just know that Kimberly knows where I need to be. So I have a Kimberly that helps me there. But when it comes to the organization of files and cases, I am very organized and always have been. I lean back on my training as a database administrator just to understand how to index and organize things. So yeah, if you were to check out my hard drives, you would be able to figure out my organization quickly. And it makes very, very good sense. Let's see, I've tried like the tomato timer thing sometimes. I do set myself alarms for when I need to get things done. I also have an agentic AI that I work with. His name is Dennis through OpenClaw, if you guys are familiar with OpenClaw. So I have this agentic AI assistant that helps me with a lot of stuff having to do with CrimeCod, having to do with the channel, keeping me on task and doing tasks on my behalf. So, and if you are not familiar with agentic AI, I think everybody should dive into it. I'm pretty new into it myself, but and it can be scary and it can be unsecure. But I do think it's probably the future, and so I'm working with it pretty much all the time. I'd love to know what tips and techniques you might have for organization, especially if it comes to my personal life, because I like my office is always constantly a mess. Like on right down here, I probably have 3,000 or 4,000 negatives that I need to scan. And over here, I have boxes of old photos, old documents, some old negatives, some old artwork that I need to go through and organize. It's a mess. I am a mess, but I'm working my way through it all. I'd love your tips and tricks. Thanks, Diane. Question number 2 today. Top 3 movies from Diane F. Top 3 movies. Well, depends on what day you ask me, but the best Western ever made is Open Range. That I watch that movie 3 or 4 times a year. I love that movie. Other movies that I love, Spotlight. Have you guys seen Spotlight? It's about the Catholic priest scandal that was uncovered in Boston. The sexual abuse scandal. Oh, it's so good. So I guess today that's my second top movie, and maybe my third top movie of all time. Let's go deep into the archives. And I'm going to just say, because I'm a sucker for old Disney movies, I'm going to say The Happiest Millionaire. I love that movie. I don't watch it all that often, maybe every few years. It's Fred McMurray. It's John Davidson. It's Leslie Ann Warren. It's Tommy Steele. It's Greer Garson. It's a great cast. Sometime in the 1960s is when it was made. It's set in the early 1900s, Philadelphia. It's a musical. I love musicals. So that's my list today. Open Range, Spotlight, and The Happiest Millionaire. Tell me your top three. And question number 3, Rua asks, cool random thing you found on the ground, like a stone or dropped toy as a kid or adult? Man, I should have prepared for that one. A cool thing that I've found on the ground. I, hmm. The only thing that I can think of, and there are multiple things, like my wife loves the beach. She is a beach girl. She grew up going to the beach, camping near the beach, staying in beach houses with her grandparents, things like that. I think the beach houses came later on in life, but she's a beach girl. I am not a beach boy. The water's cold and sand gets everywhere. But when I go to the beach, I do like to walk along the beach, and I love like looking at seashells, stuff like that. And I really love sand dollars, especially the teeny, teeny, tiny ones. And I've collected a few over the years, and I used to give them to my mom. She has this whole collection. It's still at their house of little sand dollars that I would collect from Northern California, Southern California beaches. I guess that's what I would say. I don't think there's anything else cool that I've picked up. Yeah, I think that's it. Those guys are your 3 questions. I can't wait to read your answers. Be sure to send me your questions. 3 questions at gavinfish.com. It's spelled out THREE questions at gavinfish.com, and I will do my very best to answer each and every one of them. And while you are typing in your answers to these 3 questions, because I really want to know what you guys have to say, let's go over some headlines, shall we?
True crime headlines.
Okay, our first headline is just a very quick reminder that Amy Hilliard, at least as of the time that I was preparing this live stream, is still missing. She is a 52-year-old business owner from Oakland, California. She was last seen on March 25th, 2026. This might be another good segment where we talk about missing people. Man, coming up with good ideas. We need to have good news, but missing persons. This is important. She is at risk due to an undisclosed medical condition. She was last seen about 2 p.m. Other reports say 4:30 p.m., but it was on March 25th. She was on the 500 block of Radnor Road in Oakland, California, which is where she lives. It was also reported that she may have been seen near Diamond Park later that afternoon. She was wearing a white short-sleeved shirt, light jeans, white sneakers with black stripes. Again, she's a 52-year-old female, 5 foot 4 inches tall, about 120 pounds, with blonde hair and hazel eyes. I do have a couple of close-up pictures, or maybe other pictures of her that we can just kind of look at here real quick. Anybody in the Bay Area, if you've seen this woman, or maybe by now she could be anywhere. But if you have seen Amy Hilliard, please, please, please contact the Oakland Police, 510-238-3641 or 510-599-4857. We need to help bring Amy Hilliard home. I put a link to the website down in the description below, along with links to every article in today's live stream. Okay, this piqued my attention from CBSNews.com, written by Austin Turner. Ketamine Queen sentenced to 15 years in prison in connection with Matthew Perry's death. Jasveen Sangha, a woman prosecutors refer to as the Ketamine Queen, was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison during a hearing in a Los Angeles courtroom on Wednesday, today, after pleading guilty to federal drug charges last year in connection with the 2023 death of Friends star Matthew Perry. That is Matthew Perry's death is a reminder, to me at least, that life is hard and people are complicated. And it doesn't seem to matter the success that you reach. Addiction can affect us all. The sentencing comes after Sangha, 42, of North Hollywood, pleaded guilty last September to 3 counts of distribution of ketamine, 1 count of distribution of ketamine resulting in death or serious bodily injury, and 1 count of maintaining a drug-involved premises. So Ms. Sangha headed to federal prison for 15 years, in part because of the death of Matthew Perry, which, oh, and there was somebody else here. I should bring that up. I think Salvador Plasencia, a former physician, was sentenced in December to 30 months in prison for illegally distributing ketamine to Perry and his assistant. A second, Dr. Mark Chavez, was sentenced 2 weeks later to 3 years of supervised release with special conditions of 8 months of home confinement and ordered to perform 300 hours of community service. Chavez pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute ketamine. So, and then Perry's former live-in assistant, Kenneth Iwamasa, 60, of Toluca Lake, is set to be sentenced on April 22nd. He purchased the drugs and repeatedly injected them into Perry, including the 3 shots of ketamine that led to his death on October 28th, 2023. Eric Fleming, 55, of Hawthorne, acted as a middleman between Sangha and Iwamasa. There's just so many people involved, man. Life is hard. Life is complex. And yeah, very sad. Okay, this one is one that I should have brought to you guys last month. Let me see if I have... I don't have pictures, but do you guys remember Kimberly Sullivan? This was written on March 13th by Lauren Silver, somebody whose work we read quite a lot around here. Kimberly Sullivan is the person accused of holding her son captive inside her home for decades. He lit a fire, hoping that firemen would come and save him, and indeed they did. Dateline Waterbury, Connecticut. The headline reads, "Woman accused of holding stepson captive for years faces new charges." A Connecticut woman accused of holding her son captive inside her home for decades appeared in court on Thursday. This was back in March after prosecutors filed new charges against her. Kimberly Sullivan now faces 2 charges of first-degree kidnapping, awesome, along with charges of assault, unlawful restraint, and intentional cruelty to persons, according to records reviewed by Court TV. The charges mirror those she initially faced when she was charged last year, but were updated to reflect new information, prosecutors said. The new information wasn't immediately made available to the public. So I'm glad to hear that about Kimberly Sullivan. That was a crazy case. Okay. Lastly, this coming to us from crimecod.com. Do you guys know crimecod.com? That is my website. It's our true crime news website. Jacob Charles writes for CrimeCod. Former FedEx driver admits killing 7-year-old Athena Strand after delivering Christmas gifts. Dateline Fort Worth, Texas. The case against Tanner Horner bypassed its most contested phase Tuesday when he pleaded guilty to the killing of 7-year-old Athena Strand. And look at that precious little thing. Look at that beautiful girl. Leaving jurors to weigh whether he deserves the death penalty. According to CBS News, Horner pleaded guilty to capital murder and aggravated kidnapping in connection with the November 2022 killing, abandoning his early not guilty plea and eliminating the need for jurors to decide his guilt. Instead, they are now tasked with weighing whether he should receive the DP or life in prison. The sudden plea transformed the courtroom proceedings, with jurors immediately hearing opening statements that outlined two sharply different narratives, as reported by the Dallas Morning News. Prosecutors portrayed the killing as calculated and violent, while defense attorneys argued Horner's neurological and developmental issues, including autism, prenatal alcohol exposure, and high lead levels, should spare him from the DP. Authorities have said Horner was working as a contract delivery driver when he brought a package, a box containing Barbie dolls intended as a Christmas gift, to Athena's home in Wise County on November 30th, 2022. I just don't even want to read the rest of this, but I'm going to force myself to it. According to an arrest affidavit cited by CBS News, Horner told investigators he accidentally struck the child with his delivery truck while backing out of the driveway. Though he claimed she did not appear seriously injured, investigators say he panicked, placed her in his van, and strangled her out of fear she would tell her father what had happened. Okay, I can't read the rest of it, but there is a link in the description if you want to read the rest of it, and I encourage you to visit crimecod.com. It's a great website with great articles. Jacob and Kate are my writers over there. Hope to be adding to the staff, but check that out. Let's finish up strong, shall we, by just checking in and reading what you guys have to say. Let me refreshify here. All right. Debbie, did you get the thank you gift I sent you yet? I haven't, but I haven't been down to the post office in a while. I will check that out. Robin says, I found a $100 bill but didn't keep it. Well, good for you, Robin. Did you find the rightful owner? That's awesome. Miss Chivos Dragon says, I used the Finch app to manage self-care like brushing teeth, drinking water, standing up for 10 seconds, etc. Finch, you say? You know, for my personal health, I use two apps. Now that you mention an app, I use Simple, which helps me with eating correctly and with moving, going on walks and stuff like that. It's pretty fun. And then I use Gravel for my workouts. Pretty great. Let's see. Archangel says, about Amy Hilliard, is there video of her near the area where she was last seen? Not that I have seen. Driven Lattice says, Gavin, not a lot of people cover the missing on YouTube. Might want to. Let's think about that one. Top 3 movies for Miss Chivos Dragon. The Third Man, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the Gene Wilder version, and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Well, that is a great list. I have to say, I really love the Johnny Depp version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's very good. I mean, I grew up on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but our kids grew up on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and it's really, really good. Really good. Great list. Is there anything else that you guys want me to see here? Let's see. The Robbie Lobby says, I set my priorities by whatever I have to step over, trip on, or have to move in order to move something else. Well, I have been tripping over my 2026 taxes for the last several weeks. Got to get that finished. Great. Oh, let's see. Archangel says, I found a Greek charm. That's pretty great. Driven Lattice says, I had a big crush on Matthew Perry when I was younger. That's a good one. My kids say, Robin says, that Willy Wonka is a serial killer because you never see the kids leave. Well, what happened to Veruca Salt after she fell down the little, thing, but what's it? We don't know. We don't. Maybe Willy Wonka was a serial killer. All right, guys, thank you so much for spending some time with me on this Wednesday. Thank you for supporting me. I did see a couple new patrons today, and that's pretty fun. And also, I am noticing that the Spotify channel is growing. If you are on Spotify, I leave a link in the YouTube description down below. Go follow me there. That helps the channel immensely. I deeply appreciate all the ways that you guys support me, including sending the little thank you gifts. I will have to run down to the post office and see what might be there. Looking forward to that. All right, guys, with that, I shall bid you adieu. Oh, with one last comment sneaking in before the wire. Willy Wonka's Factory. Wrong one. Where is it? Oh, it's not coming up. It's from Penguin saying Willy Wonka's Factory is a huge OSHA violation. And with that, I bid you adieu. I hope you have a terrific night or day, wherever and whenever you are. And I hope to see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.